I really enjoyed the latest batch of Wings episodes. This is Wings Season 4, episodes 16, 17, 18 and 19. We have my all-time favourite very brief cameo in the second episode, well, the 17th episode, and I'll talk about that in a moment. As always, I will go through each episode in turn, share some thoughts, any negatives, but to be honest, there aren't really any negatives. I have one teeny tiny point of something I would have liked to have seen a bit more of, but in general, I have nothing but praise for these. We start with Season 4, Episode 16, The Gift Part 2. This is directed by Andy Ackerman. And to recap, at the end of the previous episode, Brian and Joe presented Helen with a cello. And she got upset and left the room. And she's still a little upset. But finally, she accepted the cello. And she went to the audition. And she didn't get the job. And then she did. It was quite a roller coaster. And then we find out that actually she was their third choice, but it doesn't matter. She's part of the quartet. And then it turns out she's not enjoying it, but she can't quit because of the cost of the cello. Brian and Joe paid a lot of money. It's ridiculous how expensive the instrument is. And that's also back in the day as well. I can't even imagine how much they'd cost now. And she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know if she can quit because she'll be then quitting and they've paid all of this money, or if she should stick it out but be unhappy. It's quite a dilemma, and we'll come back to that in a moment. We also have the continuation of Phantom of the Opera from the previous episode, and we get to see Lowell, Antonio, Roy, and Faye rehearsing, and then Faye gets to play opera, which is a little strange, and Lowell gets to swing on the rope, which I have to say I had a lot of fun with. I found that to be very, very funny. And then we get to see the performance, and we get this lovely vocal performance from Antonio with some slightly awkward lyrics, but it was really good fun. And at the end, the two stories have actually combined because the swinging on the stage involves somebody who was involved with the quartet, and it's just utter chaos, and we end with Helen playing for Joe and Brian. It was a nice episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's one of those episodes where I think it was worth having the two parts. Maybe they could have condensed it into one episode if they really wanted to, but I definitely think that it worked quite well. We then come to Season 4, Episode 17, I Love Brian, directed by Andy Ackerman, and the title is because Antonio has discovered I Love Lucy, and he's quite a fan of I Love Lucy, and that's kind of where the title comes from. They could have maybe got a little bit more out of the I Love Lucy part, but what we got was really good, and the rest of the episode focuses on Clint Black, the singer, and Brian pretends to know Clint Black to impress Alex, and he says he can get tickets, and he manages to do this, and then Alex happens to mention that she's looking forward to going to meet Clint Black, because of course if Brian's friends with the singer, then of course he's going to meet him after the concert. You wouldn't go all the way to your friend's concert without meeting them afterwards and congratulating them or whatever, and they have to find a way to make this happen. And Brian and Lowell are trying to sneak into the after party, but it turns out Alex and Helen actually managed to get in anyway, which was quite fun, and it's a really nice environment. We have a lot of extra characters here, a lot more than usual for Wings, which was a nice atmosphere. And then we have the golden character, the character who makes me very, very happy. This is, of course, Rebecca Howe, played, of course, by the perfect Kirstie Alley, and she's in it for 26 seconds. I did time it, and basically Rebecca is trying to get into the party and claims she knows Clint, and it's very Rebecca. And fun fact, Kirstie Alley had no recollection of this. I met her at a virtual con at GalaxyCon in 2022, and beforehand there was a panel with Kirstie and George Wendt and John Ratzenberger, and I asked a question. There was like a chat where you could ask questions, and I asked what it was like playing their characters on Wings, because all three of them had appeared in Wings, and Kirstie had no recollection of this, but it was 26 seconds, so who can blame her? But those 26 seconds were very good. And then we have quite a good bit, actually. And Alex thinks, look, Brian, you're trying to sneak in. It's clear you don't know Clint Black. And then, actually, she asks Clint Black, do you know this man? And he plays along. He says, yes, I do. which was really interesting. And of course, Alex believed him. And it turns out Helen had actually instigated that. So I thought that was a pretty lovely moment. And for a brief second, it seems like Alex was starting to like Brian, but it didn't really go anywhere. But it's a good, fun episode. We have our wonderful, wonderful Kirstie Alley cameo. And in general, I have zero complaints about this at all. We then come to season 4, episode 18, The Key to Alex, again directed by the brilliant Andy Ackerman. And we have a couple of parts to the narrative, and one of them I felt didn't really satisfy me as much as it could have done. It's very small, but Lowell is trying to find a nickname because he wants a cool nickname. And I just felt like that never concluded. I never really felt like that part of the narrative was satisfying. I wanted more out of it. So that's my only real criticism for the only tiny batch. But obviously they only have a limited amount of time, so it's fair enough. Helen has a date. And she's talking about this, and then they get onto a slightly different topic, and then Lowell says, "Did I ever tell you guys about the time I put an entire kitten in my mouth?" Which is not what I expected him to say. And he tells a story about folding its little legs down, and the physical comedy of him kind of demonstrating that was really good. Obviously, don't do that. I don't condone that. The concept isn't funny, but the moment within the episode and just the way Lowell said it and then his actions, very funny. But I was going to say as a cat person, I don't condone that, but I'd like to just think that even if I wasn't a cat person, I would still be against putting a cat in anybody's mouth. Joe then thinks he has a date with Alex, but actually he just has a date to look after her dog. Beautiful, beautiful dog. And Brian then tells Alex, "Look, I've been coming on to you just to make my girlfriend jealous." Which girlfriend? Well, we know he doesn't have a girlfriend, but Alex agrees to go on a date with him to the restaurant where his girlfriend apparently works to then make his girlfriend jealous, which I have to say, if Brian is trying to win Alex over, which is exactly what he's trying to do, saying that if you were my girlfriend, I would do stunts like this to make you jealous, that's not a good look. That's not how you win somebody over. So Brian's not really thinking this through, but it plays out in a way that's very entertaining. He pretends that one of the waitresses there is his girlfriend, and then one of Alex's friends comes to mess with him, and obviously Alex could see right through what he was doing, but Brian didn't realise this was a setup, and he ends up kissing the waitress, which was really awkward. And then we have what I think is quite a sweet moment. Brian and Joe both realise they can't carry on like this with Alex. They're both trying to start a relationship or even just date Alex, and it's just not going anywhere. It's not a good look for anybody, so they all go out to eat, and they start afresh. They start from the beginning again and try to establish a friendship, and it was nice. And also Alex, this must be so frustrating, Alex basically pointed out that she likes these qualities in Joe and these qualities in Brian, so together they're the perfect boyfriend. That must be so infuriating to hear, but it was a nice way to end things, and The Key to Alex is ultimately a decent episode. We then have an episode that I remembered so well from when I first watched this quite a few years ago now, but pretty much the entire thing was stuck in my mind. This is episode 4. No, it's not. It's season 4, episode 19, The Houseguest, directed, of course, by Andy Ackerman. And this one features William Hickey as Carlton Blanchard, and he asks a lot of questions, and it's really, really good fun. And he's in the airport, and he has a call from his son, and unfortunately his son can't visit him on his 70th birthday, so he's quite unhappy about that. And Helen, being a good person, suggests they all throw him a party so he's not alone on his birthday. That's really lovely of her. We're then having the party at Helen's house. The decorations are beautiful. It's not a fun party. They're playing 20 questions, which I have to say is a fun party game, but not the way that they were playing it. And Carlton realises it's time to go home, so he goes to use the the little birthday boy's room, as he called it, and he fell down the stairs. And he hurt his ankle. So Helen kind of reluctantly agrees that he can stay there while he gets back on his feet. And he's demanding and constantly asking questions and is generally being an absolute pain. Helen manages to rope some other people in to help. Faye tries to help, and he asks Faye to crank him up. And it was very obvious what he was thinking, but Faye, of course, thought he meant the bed. And then Antonio comes over with Carlton's cats, and Carlton asked Antonio some pretty funny questions, actually. I have to say, the questions were pretty entertaining. And Helen has gone out to get something, And she comes home and she catches Carlton dancing. And he has to admit that he's fine. And he then admitted that he doesn't even have a son, which I didn't remember. I didn't remember that part, and it caught me off guard, and I rather liked it. So that was a really fun, really entertaining episode. Whenever I do batch reviews, I try and rank the episodes. So I'm going to have to say, well, number one would be The Houseguest. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And then I think I'd say The Gift Part 2. There were some really good moments. And then, well, I'd have to say I Love Brian, excluding Kirstie Alley. Kirstie Alley's cameo is my number one highlight, but the rest of the episode, I'd say I Love Brian. And then The Key to Alex, but they're all great, really thoroughly enjoyed them. Season 4, episodes 16, 17, 18, and 19 are definitely really great episodes of Wings.